Hi, it's Sherri from A Quilting Life, and I'm here today to share with you a zipper bag tutorial. I've been wanting to share this on the YouTube channel for quite a little while and have so many fun things to tell you about this simple method for making a zipper bag. If you've never put in a zipper before, don't be afraid. I have a really simple method that really makes it easy to put together, even if it's your first time. And I'm going to show you several different options and kind of walk you through the whole process step by step. I originally did this tutorial on my blog a couple of years ago and used mini charm packs. So you can use mini charm squares or you can use your scraps, but I'm also going to give you a few different options for making your bag. So let's get started making a patchwork zipper bag. Okay, I'm going to be working today with a material called Soft and Stable that I use to give my bag the body that I really like. But you do have other options. You can use batting to give your bag the batting. Just take some batting scraps left over from a quilt. You can also use fusible fleece. That works great. If you're going to use the batting or the fusible fleece, I really recommend lining your bag front and back with a fusible interfacing first, like Shape Flex. That's what I like to use. If you're going to use the Soft and Stable though, you really don't need to line your fabrics at all. And if you're not sure what Soft and Stable is, I just wanted to show it to you quickly. It's kind of a foam-like material that comes in small packages or on a roll. And it just has great stability. It washes wonderfully. I like to use it for placemats and for bags just because of how durable it is. And it does come in two colors, a light creamy white and then also a black. If you're sewing with a lot of dark fabrics and feel like it might show through, you can get the black. So I'll be using the Soft and Stable today, but you can use those other products. Okay, we're going to get started with what you need, and I'll show you the tips and tricks along the way. Okay, I'll have all the materials listed on my blog so that you can go and look for them, and I also have them in PDF form in my Etsy shop if you want to go download that so you have it. But I will go over everything that you need. If you want to make the patchwork bag front and back out of squares, you'll need 24 squares that are 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. I'm just going to show you what I did on the back of this one though. I used half square triangles in place of some squares. And you could do the front and back with half square triangles or just one side like I did. And the other option is to do the back just solid. And I'm going to be working with that today. I actually have some Soft and Stable that I had quilted that I'm going to use for my bag back. So it saves a lot of time and you only have to do the patchwork on the front of the bag, but you're welcome to make it all half square triangles, all squares, or you could even do both sides with previously quilted batting or Soft and Stable. So you'll need the squares and you're going to sew them together in a 3x4 grid. So 4 squares across and 3 rows. And I just sewed it, placed it on. You're going to need an 8 by 10 inch piece of Soft and Stable or batting or fusible fleece. But I just did really simple machine quilting with my standard home machine. I lengthened my stitch length to 3.0 so that my stitches weren't too close together, and I just went on either side of every seam. And then you'll notice I went all around the edges, just about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, just to keep it all together, and you can kind of see what it looks like on the back. Also today I'm going to be making a smaller version, so I have a couple things to show you. And this is more like a pencil case size or just a smaller little zipper bag. So for this one I just did the 2 rows. So we'll kind of get started on that. So along with your squares or your previously quilted material, you're also going to need either fabric for the back or squares for the back, but you're also going to need lining fabrics. And for the large bag, that is going to be 6.5 inches by 8.5 inches, 2 of them. For the small bag, I did 4.5 inches by 8.5 inches, 2 of those. You'll also need 1 4-inch square, and that will make your zipper tabs. If you notice we're going to use the zipper tab method of installing this zipper that makes it very, very easy. So you'll need a little 4-inch scrap of fabric for the zipper tabs. And then also a 1-inch by 12-inch strip for your zipper pull. And I won't actually be showing you how to make this today because I have another video where I demonstrate a quick and easy method for making the zipper pull. You're also going to need a zipper that's at least 9 inches long. And I suggest that you have 2 rotary cutters, one for working on fabric, and then one that you don't care about so much for trimming the batting, soft and stable, and the zipper. The other option is you could use an old pair of scissors that you don't care about, but I use a rotary cutter with a dull blade when I'm trimming my zippers. Okay, so we're going to get started now. I'm going to show you after you've sewn your patchwork and sewn it to either batting, fusible fleece, or soft and stable, we're going to trim around the edges. And I am going to use this dull rotary cutter just to get all of those edges trimmed. Okay, and I'll go ahead and trim this one up while I'm at it. And after we trim these, we are actually ready to start working on the zipper. We get the zipper all ready before we attach it to the bag, and that's part of what makes it really simple, even if you haven't sewn a zipper before. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do, actually let's make our zipper tabs first. Cut the 4-inch square of fabric into 2 rectangles, and they're both going to measure 1 3/4 of an inch by 3 inches. So you can see that you can get both of them cut from one square. And then what you're going to do is you're going to fold it in half, press, and then you open up and you press each end into that seam line and fold it in half again. So you're going to make the little zipper tab, and I've got 2 of them that are already pressed right here. They've already been folded, pressed in half again. Okay, so we're going to need to make 1 for each side of our zipper, and you just do that at the ironing board. Just do the pressing. Okay, next what you're going to do is you're going to take your zipper, and for an 8-inch bag, and both of our bags are going to be 8 inches, you're going to finished. They are 8.5 inches wide right now. You're going to trim this zipper to exactly 7.5 inches. And you want to make sure that the zipper pull is in the middle. And so I just line it up, get it as straight as I can, and then I'm going to use my old rotary cutter to trim that. Okay, I've got it at exactly 7.5 inches. Okay, and you're just going to throw that part of the zipper away. We're not going to use it again. Now what we're going to do is we're going to insert each end of the zipper into a zipper tab section. And with the side that is, where your zipper is open, I just kind of put it together as well as I can. And I'm going to actually clip these with a Wonder Clip. Wonder Clips are really great for working on zipper bags. So I'm just going to put a couple clips in. And then I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew about 1/8 of an inch away from this pressed edge, making sure that it goes through to the other side. And I'm going to sew right here. And I've actually got one that I've already sewn that's ready to go. And so I'll show you what it looks like. I just put that zipper tab on. I sewed about 1/8 of an inch away on either side. And so I have my zipper tab and I'm ready to go. Okay. The next step is we're going to take our bag and we're going to center this zipper right sides together with what you want to be the top of your zipper bag. So it doesn't really matter kind of the way I laid out these fabrics, but we're going to center it right sides together, and you're going to take the top of the zipper tape even with the edge of the bag. So the zipper tab is actually going to extend a little, and that's okay. We'll cut it off after we sew it on. But you will notice that the bag is wider than the zipper tab, and that is how it is supposed to be as well, because that's going to allow us to make our seam allowance for the bag so that we're not catching the zipper. So again, we're going to take some wander clips, and I just like to clip this so it's even to the bag. Then we're going to take this over to the sewing machine and just baste about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge, just so that it kind of stays together and so that it won't move. And if you need to, you can move the zipper pull. You can move it all the way down here while you sew this portion. Then you can stop with your needle down and slide the tab up while you finish sewing. But another thing I want to mention is that the zipper I'm using is a by Annie zipper. And I really like them because they are extra wide and they make it a lot easier to sew on your regular home machine. You don't need a special zipper foot to sew because the zipper tape is plenty wide that you can just use your regular presser foot. Okay, so I'm going to go over to the sewing machine. I'm going to baste this and I will be right back. Okay, I went over to the sewing machine and I sewed the zipper to my bag just with a 1/8 inch seam. So you can see that it's sewn like that. At this point I am going to trim off that zipper tab because it's not really needed, it extends. And then we're going to take our lining section and we're going to put it on top of that, okay? And line up the edges. And again, I'm going to use the Wonder Clips to hold it together. Wonder Clips, they're just so wonderful. I don't know how we lived without them. They were a great adventure. These are actually the little minis that I'm using, but the larger size work as well. Okay, so once you have it clipped, you're going to take it over to the sewing machine and you're going to sew a full 1/4 inch seam this time. And again, you might need to move that zipper tab. It'll move as needed. You can start with it back here, sew the first part of your bag, and then maybe if you need to. Sometimes I need to, sometimes I don't. But you're going to sew that with a 1/4 inch seam, and then you're going to press it to the other side and put a little 1/4 inch top stitch. Now I already did this part of the process with the small zipper bag that I'm making. So you can see that I sewed it together. I flipped the lining so that the wrong side of the lining is facing the wrong side of the bag front. And I did a little 1/4 inch seam right there. So the next step is that we're going to do the same thing on this side. We're going to make a sandwich with our bag back, and we're going to use our bag back lining. So we're going to flip it over, and we are going to, again, now at this point, remember the zipper section is going to be smaller than the bag back, just like it was smaller than the front. But the way you can get it aligned is to line up the edges of the front and back and to line up the zipper here. And so we're going to clip. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to go sew a 1/8 inch seam. And then we're going to do the same process by placing the lining on and sewing with a 1/4 of an inch seam. So I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to put this all together, and I'm also going to get this one ready for the next step. Okay, I'm back from the sewing machine. So this bag, I've got the lining and I've got the back sewn. I'm just going to go through this step one more time again so you can see that when we sew that final lining on, it's going to go face to face with the lining that you put on the bag front. So this is the lining for our bag back. And we're going to wonder clip, and this is the time when we will sew the 1/4 inch seam and flip it over, press it, and do the 1/4 inch top seam. And I've already done that with the second bag. So this is kind of what you end up with after you've attached the bag front and the bag back and both linings to your zipper. So this is where you're at. Now the next step is really important that you open the zipper to the middle. Do not do the next step before opening the zipper, otherwise you won't be able to get your bag turned right side out. So I open the zipper, and this is where it gets kind of fun. We're going to place them, so you're going to have the back and the front right sides together and the 2 lining sections right sides together. And we're going to clip with the wonder clips around the entire unit. What I do when I get to the end is I make sure that everything lines up so that the top of the bag front and the top of the bag back are kind of even. And you should see that your zipper tab is here, so you're going to have room for your 1/4 inch seam allowance right inside of there, and you won't have to sew over the zipper tab. So just make sure that it's all lined up rather well. Now, somewhere in the zipper lining, you're going to leave about a 3-inch opening. And so what I usually do is I just kind of put my wonder clips in and leave a 3-inch opening. I'm not going to sew in that opening. That's the opening that we're going to use to turn the bag right side out. So I'm just going to keep clipping all the way around. Again, checking to make sure that I'll be able to sew my 1/4 inch seam allowance and I won't run into that zipper tab. We're actually done with the zipper now. We don't have to worry about the zipper anymore. Okay, so after I've got this all clipped, I will take it over to the sewing machine and I will sew the entire, I kind of like to also pull it over on, look on both sides, make sure everything lines up on both sides so that you know you're going to encase everything in your 1/4 inch seam. Okay, so we're going to start here. We're going to sew a 1/4 of an inch all the way around, and we're going to stop here. And make sure you backspace at both spots. And I also kind of sew down. It might be easier for you to see after I sew it, but I'm actually going to sew a vertical line that's perpendicular to my seam line at the front and at the beginning. It really helps to keep these seams from coming undone when you're turning the bag inside out. Okay, so I'm going to go sew this together and come back and show you the next steps. We're almost done. Okay, I'm back from the sewing machine and I've sewn all the way around my bag. I've left this 3-inch opening. Something that I like to do is I just kind of go through and I check my seam and make sure I caught everything on the sides. That way if there's something that you missed or you need to go double stitch it, you can go do that now before you turn your bag the right side out and find the problem and have to flip it inside out again and do it over. I just do want to point out what I did here. This really helps. So this is my 3-inch opening, and if you notice, here's where my seam was coming. I pivoted and I sewed perpendicular and back stitched. And I did this again right here, and it just makes it to where when you turn it right side out, that it just turns a lot easier, and it's easier for you to machine or hem this edge together with that. So I'll show it to you. I think you can see it on the other side too. I sewed and pivoted, sewed and pivoted. Okay, at this point, if you want to just finish your bag, you can. You could clip these seams to get the bulk out, a diagonal clip right here, and just make sure you don't cut off your seam allowance. And you would do that on all 4 corners, but you can also box the corners, and that gives you this little seam right here on both sides and makes it to where the bag has a little bit more depth. So you don't have to, you can completely do it without boxing it, but I'm just going to show you how to box it real quickly. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut out a 1-inch square from each of the 4 corners. And so I just take my ruler and cut, and some people like to take a pencil and just draw the lines and then cut it with scissors. You can do that as well. I'm just gonna take out, so it's a 1-inch square and it goes all the way through, and we're gonna do that on all 4 corners. And this is only if you want to take the extra step and box your corners. You'll have 4 more little seams to sew if you do it this way. And again, so it's just a 1-inch square that we're cutting out. Okay, and then what you're going to do to sew that together is you're going to kind of stick your finger in that hole, bring the 2 fabrics together, and I like to open up these seams and clip them with Wonder Clips. And then you're going to go over to the machine and you're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam. And you're going to do this in all 4 places where you box the corner. If you can't get it to lay flat, it's not a big deal. I usually try to. Sometimes it's difficult. It's a little more difficult if you're making the little 4-inch bag because it's a tighter fit, but you're also going to do it up at the linings where you cut those holes out of the lining. And the lining fabric is usually easier to get to completely open up. And we're going to do it on this last side. Okay, and then you're going to go over to the sewing machine and you're going to actually sew all 4 of these little edges closed with a 1/4 inch seam. Now I've already done that on my little bag, so you can see that they're sewn. And now we're ready to turn it right side out, and we're going to turn it out through that hole that we left. And you know, don't be super forceful when you're turning it out. 3-inch should give you plenty of room. And then you're going to turn your bag right side out. The zipper tabs make it super easy to turn it out right there at the zipper. There's going to be a little tiny kind of loopy hole there. That's fine. That's because we didn't sew across those tabs. We didn't want them not to open. And I got all my little parts turned out. It opens and shuts. It's a cute little bag. You can go through and trim all these little threads. Now you notice that was a 1-inch square. I wanted to show you the difference. So that makes kind of a bigger bottom here on this bag. This one was done with a 1/2 inch square. So you can play around with boxing those corners and see what size you like. But I just kind of think this is it gives it a really fun shape. What you'll want to do then is here where we turned it inside out is you'll want to, I usually press it right sides together and it just folds in so nicely because of those 2 little extra stitches that we took. I will usually clip them together, and honestly, I'll usually just take it over to my sewing machine and sew a really narrow hem to hold that together. If you really don't want it to show at all, you could slip stitch this by hand, but I feel like nobody's ever going to look in the bottom of your makeup bag and see that little machine. But I will clip it together and either hand or machine stitch it together. One last thing I wanted to show you, this is what I mentioned at the beginning, that when we cut these 1-inch strips, you can use a bias tape maker, or you can fold it in half and then do the fold in half, fold in half, fold in half again to make a little zipper pull tab. I've already made this one, and we'll pop up a link to that other video so you can go see the tutorial on how to make it. But once I've made it, I fold it in half. I bring the raw edges through the zipper pull, and that's another reason why I love these by Any zippers. I'm going to pull it through, and then down at this end I usually just, and this is in the other video as well, but I usually just tie it together in a knot, and then I take really sharp scissors or my rotary cutter and just do a diagonal cut so I have a little pull tab for my bag. And that's how you make a zipper bag. Okay, so there we have the zipper bag tutorial. I did the patchwork on one side of each of my bags and just did the solid back on the other. You can mix and match and do however you like. I hope that you really enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, if you'd hit the like button, I would appreciate that, and share with any of your friends that you think might be interested in. And thank you so much for stopping by.